So in this segment of the podcast, I want to get into a little history of who Pearl Jr. is. First of all, I want to specifically state that Pearl Jr. is by no way, shape, or form a Michael Jackson fan, although she may tell you that she is. And we as moonwalkers, we tend to hold dear those people who consider themselves to be fans of Michael Jackson, based on, how they relate to Michael Jackson. Well, Pearl Jr.'s relativity to Michael Jackson is only her involvement in his trials, his sex allegation trial that he went through back in 2005. Now, she would have most people to believe, she would try to get most people to believe that she was credentialed media. Credentialed media. Those are just, that's just a play on words to get people to think that she's relevant, as far as media is concerned. But we all know, as Michael Jackson fans, that Michael despised the media. Although he would, do interviews with certain people, and he was reluctant to do interviews at all. We know that, he despised members of mass media. So she would have people to believe that she was credentialed media at his trial, even though she was not in the spots where, quote unquote, credentialed media was. CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, Fox News. All of those people were in one general spot when she was in totally a different spot. That's neither here nor there. I'm just giving you the basis of her relevance, which is irrelevant. Anyway, she was, a media spokesperson at the time, and she may or may have or may not have covered that trial, to an extent to where she reported on it to who, I have no idea. But, all the information that, she was putting out, whether she was putting it out at all, you could have got that information from mass media, CBS, NBC, ABC, CNN, so on and so forth. So she was irrelevant. And, of course, she's not a fan to actually be impartial to believe, to actually, think that Michael Jackson would be guilty of such heinous crimes as child sex abuse. We as Michael Jackson fans were not impartial to it. We knew it was bullshit. We knew what they were putting him up against, because they had an agenda to, silence him or to take him down as an entertainer. We all knew that was bullshit. So partiality has nothing to do with the fact that we know he wasn't guilty of any of those things. What he was guilty of was being an humble servant, to sick and disadvantaged children. And he was taken advantage of by a select few who he let into his life outside of him being an entertainer. Now, Pearl's relativity to Michael Jackson also continued after his passing in 2009. Now, from 2005 to 2009, her relevance was minuscule. She didn't do too much as far as, being involved in the fan community at all. She wrote a book or two. I didn't get it. I didn't even pay attention to none of the stuff she was doing until she popped onto the scene back in, I think it was 2010 or 2011, when she had a Netflix documentary out called Suicide. Did Michael Jackson fake his death to save his life? She popped back on the scene at that moment with, this debauchery of a documentary. And this is actually where the death hoax started, because she drummed up a fan base, or a following, if you will, based on derogatory information on what Michael Jackson possibly could have did to fake his death, behind all the stuff that he was going through prior to him dying. But that's not where she took on the death hoax. That's just where it got its it was planted. It got its root from this particular documentary. But where it started to flourish is when she became part of a chat site that Mr. Bobby Anderson created, called Jackson Empire. Jackson Empire was actually Jackson Empire was created after the passing of Michael Jackson, and it was a spinoff of a chat site that was called the Michael Jackson Neverland Kingdom, that was actually started to support Michael Jackson during his trial, during the time of his trial. It was a group of fans from across the country and around the world that got together on a particular platform called Pearljr, and the chat site was created, and it gained popularity as Michael got acquitted. After he got acquitted in his trial, it gained popularity then. The actual chat room from that platform, when Michael was acquitted, crashed the server of the platform when he was acquitted, because it was like the world was in that chat room. And actually, at the time, it was the only chat room that had a Michael Jackson theme. They had categories where you can go into ethnic groups, languages, music, genres, and so on. It was just a platform, a chat platform, where you could just pick and choose where you wanted to establish your chat site. And so this particular site, this particular chat room was in the music category. And it was the only one on the entire platform that had a Michael Jackson theme. So when Michael Jackson was acquitted, everybody flocked to that chat room. You had people who supported Michael Jackson came in there, that had never been in there. Then you had people that, thought that Michael Jackson was guilty and came in there, and they crashed the server. I'm giving you the history of two things: the history of Pearl Jr. and the history of Peter Medani too, because he was part of this this intuition that started this death hoax trash. And I forgot who his name was, but in the last segment, but in this segment, I remember this name. It was Pt2. And that's who he went by. This Peter Medani thing, I don't know where that came from. It probably came from, something he picked off from Peter Pan PYT, but we'll talk about Peter Medani later. But Jackson's Empire was a spinoff, actually an upgrade from Pearljr's platform, because it was on its own server. Jackson's Empire was. And it was a chat site, and it was actually a fan blog where, lots of fans got together and, shared in the interest of Michael Jackson. Okay. This is where Pearl actually may or may not, and I don't have any evidence or proof of this, but these are just my personal opinions. This is where Pearl Jr. may or may not have, gained access to Peter Madani, Bobby Anderson. She had been a member of Jackson's empire, and she paid attention to the fan following that Bobby Anderson had. First of all, Bobby Anderson actually sounds like Michael Jackson. If you pay attention to how he talks, well, he actually presents himself to sound like Michael Jackson. So that created a following, and this following was around well before Michael Jackson passed away. So he had this following, and many, many people, the majority of them being female, would actually think that this dude was Michael Jackson. There was no doubt in my mind that I knew that this fool wasn't Michael Jackson. I didn't even know who he was, but I knew this wasn't Michael Jackson, but that's neither here nor there. But he would, come on to this chat site, and he would, woo these female followers into believing that he was Michael Jackson. Well, Pearl happened to be one of those that he influenced. The only thing about it was Pearl created her own agenda based on what she thought may have been a death hoax. And that's how all of this got started. Now, mind you, this is just my opinion. She would probably have you tell you otherwise, but I know for a fact that she was there, and I know for a fact that she knew the following that this dude had on that chat site, Jackson Empire, and it was dollar signs to her ears, what she was hearing. So that is kind of like how this fascination with Bobby Anderson being Michael Jackson in the present started. This is how all of this started. And what ended up happening after that is that these two got together and concocted some bullshit agenda to say that, yeah, Michael Jackson faked his death, and this is who is going to be Michael Jackson in the present tense from that point to where they concocted this agenda. Now, this will happen to be maybe 2012, 2013. And I say that with relevance because it was 2014 that I actually seen the Jacksons in concert when they started their world tour in Las Vegas. So this was prior to that. So I would probably say maybe 2013 to be on the safe side, but it was in somewhere in between 2012 and 2013. And so, they concocted this whole thing about a death hoax. And that's where it all started from. Now, mind you, Pearl Jr. is not a fan. She was never around during the time that, during the interim time after Michael Jackson got acquitted until the time that he passed away. She was never around fan clubs and fan bases like that, like the fans were. The fans were interactive with, fan blogs and social media at the time. And she would be, she wouldn't be, in the midst of that, as she's not a fan. Mind you, she actually had, she would never attend fan-based events. Now, ever since the passing of Michael Jackson, there's always been some type of, physical fan-based event somewhere in this country. I've been to quite a few of them. And Pearl has never showed up to any of them. Well, that would kind of be more of the relevance of a death hoax when you don't attend Michael Jackson fan-based events. But